Draupadi. Draupadi, she was the wife of the 5 brothers. So this is a very free space where the brothers have different wives, and one wife has 5 husbands. We will discuss and talk about this later on. But the archetype that nowadays we have of monogamy, forget it. Okay, it's a completely different world.
A very open one.
A very open one.
Yeah.
You were thinking about Draupadi, and I was thinking about through whom this story came to us. Vyasa.
Oh yeah, a very interesting character in the story as well.
Yeah.
I found it very fascinating that the person who is writing the story is a character in the story itself, and who enters and exits the story in different points. And many times what we have seen, when there's an impasse, when you feel that, okay, now this is where the story should end. I don't see how the story can go through from this point. Vyasa comes, introduces plot twists, adds some masala to the whole gravy, and then leaves, and then makes an entry later somewhere.
Namaste, kind listeners. Welcome to Under the Banyan Tree,
the live show where ancient epics meet modern minds.
I'm Leo, a yogini from the West.
And I am Mayank, a rationalist from the East.
Together we journey through the Mahabharata from the retelling by Ramesh, Menon. Epic of war, fate, and everything in between. Tell me, Mayank, what we are discussing today.
We are starting with the episode 0, Before the Beginning. And we are talking about the forewords from the book, because when we read it, we found it so fascinating that we decided that we should cover the foreword as well before delving into the story.
Yes, I agree with you. I felt that diving into the foreword, it was like recognizing the soil where the tree of the Mahabharata grew. We need to understand the context.
And that aligns very well with the name of our channel as well.
True. So, from what I remember, we start looking into how within the Mahabharata time is organized, and the Yugas, and how the Mahabharata, it's basically the end of one era and the beginning of the other.
Yep. It's a bridge between the 2 yugas, where the previous yuga ends and the current yuga where we are in, it starts. And to our English listeners or Western listeners, yuga is nothing but an eon, which we are talking about, an era.
Yes, so it's yoga with a U instead of an O. And and I've done the math of this because it was quite cumbersome for me. So it seems that within a Kshatriyas, there's 4 cycles. That is Satya, or some other name, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali. And so starting with Satya and going through all the way to Kali, there's increase of corruption. So it's like we start like in the Greek mythology in the golden times, and we go down all the way down in a decay of moral and spirituality until we reach the Iron Age.
That's a
Sorry.
That's a fascinating thing. I never knew about this, that we have something of a very similar sort in Greek mythology as well. And it's actually quite, it's something which is very common knowledge in India, which we always talk about. Whenever something wrong happens, whenever something bad happens, people just blame it on the current era, Kali Yuga. And the first yuga, as you said, was Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga. And in like local dialect, we also call it Sat Yuga. And then came the yuga or the eon of Rama, which was called Treta Yuga. And then came the era of Krishna, which is Kali Yuga. And,
Oh, yeah, yes.
Dwapar Yuga.
Yeah.
Dwapar Yuga. And then now the myth of Kalki is there, which is the era of Kali Yuga. So it's like different incarnation of Vishnu came in different eras, and one avatar or one incarnation is still awaited in Kali Yuga. So yeah, you can.
So I've tried to do the maths, and we will share the maths of this. It seems that we, accordingly to the calculations and numbers provided by the author, we are just at the beginning of the Kali Yuga.
Yeah, that makes sense in the sense that Mahabharat, there are many estimates on when Mahabharat happened, ranges from like 8,000 years back to 5,000, and as you said, ChatGPT said 400 BC, so probably 2,400 years back. So there is a lot of range, but common understanding of Hindus in India is that it is something which happened 5,000 years back. So around 3000 BC is what we are talking about, and that's where the transition happens from Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga.
So this is our stage then within Mahabharata, is the end of an era and the beginning of another era, where we have Krishna, so an incarnation of Vishnu, coming to end the Kshatriya, if I'm not mistaken, the Kshatriya reign, let's say. And the Kshatriya, they were actually created by the gods in a time out of mind. And I actually underlined this in my text because it suggested me that the Kshatriya, they were created before time started to be counted, a time before time, because only mind can register the linear time. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, like hearing you, I just remembered that reference of Amish Tripathi in his Oxford Union speech, where he refers something from Rigveda. I forgot the name of the hymn, but where he says maybe the creator himself or herself or itself, whatever creator is, got created when the creation happened. And when you said
so
the
time
line was,
out of, so once in time out of mind, the gods created the Kshatriyas.
yeah, like I think it's a very fascinating line which has been used in Foreword, and that's a theme of this book which we see. It is quite poetic in its writing. That's one thing which we both have observed. So yeah, it's a fascinating line for sure.
Would you infer the same as me, that it's the Kshatriya, they might have been created before linear time?
Difficult to say for me, because one thing is I also associate Kshatriya with the Chaturvarna or caste system which we talk about, the Varna system. So if you are unfamiliar, a Hindu society historically has been divided into 4 castes. Brahmin being the scholars of the society, Kshatriya being the warriors and therefore the protector of the society, Vaishya are the traders in the society, and Shudras are the people who are meant to serve the society. And this system in itself has a lot of controversial, and I have many opinions about it, but for now, if we just keep
I think we should stick just
yeah,
with the text,
yeah,
and because that's a very controversial
and a big subject on itself. But if we just talk about Kshatriyas who can trace their lineage to the gods, as the book claims,
and the ones that came to establish Dharma and justice. Dharma, we will get there.
Yeah. So what I feel about this particular aspect is that I am more of the opinion that say gods were created out when the time didn't exist. Like this is my opinion. It's not.
It's your tale.
Yeah, it's my tale. It's my story. That it has no backing from scriptures or anything. But my say in this is that gods were created before. When the creation happened, gods were created, and later somewhere we all were created. We were divided into this system. And I think the book wants to emphasize that Kshatriyas were the ones who were supposed to protect the society, establish Dharma,
Yeah.
and somehow they became corrupted.
Yes, and let me pause you there because you use the word that I think nowadays it's used in all cultures. However, its meaning changed through time, and it's the concept of dharma. Can we establish what we understand of dharma within this context, the context of Mahabharata? So I will give you my understanding. My understanding is that dharma, it's the cosmic order. And regardless if there is a personal dharma or not, the personal dharma should be aligned with the cosmic order, with the bigger dharma. Otherwise, you are not fulfilling your dharma. And I know this goes with fate, maybe, but we will get there.
Yeah, and it's a loaded term.
It is a loaded
It is
term.
a loaded term in Hinduism where we have used dharma for many things, from duty to faith to your personal obligations to the cosmic order, as you said. And I think even in this book, we feel that it has been used in many different contexts, in many different places. But I think your interpretation here, where you say that Kshatriyas were meant to establish the cosmic order, and they got corrupted and probably failed. They failed in their duty, and that's how the whatever unfolds later is what we see through this book. Like when it was needed that those Kshatriyas should be destroyed, I think the book is all about just establishing a story on how to get rid of those Kshatriyas eventually.
And I had two brainwaves at the same time while you were talking. One of them is, do you think it was inevitable for the Kshatriya to become corrupted because the Kali Yuga was coming?
I think so, and this is a tussle which we will have.
know.
This tug of war will never end in this whole story, where we will be thinking, was it all about fate, where we have nothing in our hands, or is it about action or your karma, where we decide the trajectory of the fate?
Yeah.
So if we think that because Kali Yuga is arriving and that's how things have to be, like things will unfold this way, then we kind of give up on that idea of our free will and our...
Yes and no. So, and because I think there's many ways of achieving the same goal. And this goes in line with my second brainwave, that is the questioning of, is it possible to end the power of the Kshatriya without slaughtering? Without bloodshed?
Yeah, like say through educating the society or something. I don't know.
Or, reducing their support and support system.
Yeah, like for me, it's like thinking that if you want to get rid of a dictatorship, do you only need to get rid of the dictator, or do you need to get rid of the whole ecosystem which brought that dictator up, which sometimes can be a big set of population?
I don't. You just made me think about Harry Potter. I'm so sorry, but they just had to get rid of Voldemort.
Yeah, but I think here the problem was not as simple.
No, I know.
Yeah, like that's my understanding, that, and we will talk about the characters. So, but I'm just stating out one name, that Duryodhan was not just the one point failure for this whole system. The system was much bigger than him.
And you talk about Duryodhan, and I don't see him as a demon.
Yeah, the statement used by the author, we both found it to be very... I found it to be a very, to give a very shallow highlight to the people reading. Like if someone has no idea about the story, they may establish, oh, Duryodhan is a demon.
Yeah.
But for me, it was not that simple.
Yeah, for me either. And he's just, easily corrupted. And we will talk about him further
there is a lot of gray, like he's not as black and white as the Foreword has portrayed. So that was one thing where we didn't agree with the author.
And let's go back a little bit. Let me track back, because we are already talking about Duryodhan. But who is Duryodhan?
Yeah, we need to talk a little bit about the characters. So there are some characters who have been mentioned in the Foreword. So probably we can just on a very high level talk about those characters, because some of them are quite interesting.
These are my pages.
Yeah.
I'm just moving on my pages. So we know that the stage of this epic is the house of the Kurus. And they live in the capital, that is the city of the elephants, Hastinapura. And in Hastinapura, one of the kings, Shantanu, he got married with Ganga itself. And after many, many troubles, they have one son that will be known as Bhishma, but initially his name is Devavrata.
Yeah.
And theoretically, he would be the one being the next king, which didn't happen. And who comes to rule is that guy that I never can pronounce his name.
Yeah, the one who rules is the grandson of of Bhishma, and his name is Dhritarashtra, and who is eventually the blind king of Hastinapur.
So he's always even blind.
Yeah, he was blind, and he ruled as a blind king of Hastinapur. And I would just like to give a very high level brief background about the House of Kurus. So House of Kurus is part of the Chandravanshi lineage, which is the moon dynasty or lunar dynasty. So in India, there are two lineages which are very famous. One is the lineage of sun, called as Suryavanshis. Rama was born in Suryavanshi. And one is the Chandravanshis, which is this lineage. And if I'm not wrong, the genesis of this lineage was King Bharat, on whose name India got its name, Bharat. So a very important dynasty for sure for the history of India. So yeah, probably you can carry on after Dhritarashtra.
So Dhritarashtra, he had 100 sons and one daughter. And yes, very interesting the way they have 100 sons plus one daughter. And the most prominent son is Duryodhan, the one that we were talking about. So this is one side. There is a brother of
Dhritarashtra.
That it's Pandu. And Pandu had 5 sons. But those sons were sons of Devas. And there's a conflict between the Pandavas, so the 5 sons of Pandu that they are named the Pandavas, and the Kauravas, so the sons of Dhritarashtra. Eventually I will be able of saying this name, okay? And the Mahabharata is this conflict. And if we want to remove the gray, I think, as archetypes, and just trying to see things black and white, which is very difficult, but the simplistic way is looking at the Pandavas with the help of Krishna being the ones that will reestablish Dharma, and the Kauravas being the not so good kings or princes.
Yeah, like if you have to give someone a summary of the story.
A very simplified one.
Yeah, like a black and white kind of format for the story. Then the story is about a fight, a war, a battle between the good and the evil. And the good, from the side of the good, you have the Pandavas accompanied by Krishna, and on the evil you have the Kauravas, led by Duryodhan, who was
Or
the...
Shakuni.
Oh, then there were... Yeah, like there are many... there are many characters in this whole series.
Lot.
And I think you would also like to give just a very high level idea about Draupadi.
Oh, Draupadi. Draupadi, she was the wife of the 5 brothers. So this is a very free space where the brothers have different wives, and one wife has 5 husbands. We will discuss and talk about this later on. But you know, the archetype that nowadays we have of monogamy, forget it. Okay, it's a completely different world.
A very open one.
A very open one.
Yeah.
You were thinking about Draupadi, and I was thinking about through whom this story came to us. Vyasa.
Oh yeah, a very interesting character in the story as well.
Yeah.
I found it very fascinating that the person who is writing the story is a character in the story itself, and who enters and exits the story in different points. And many times what we have seen, when there's an impasse, when you feel that okay, now this is where the story should end, this I don't see how the story can go through from this point. Vyasa comes, introduces plot twists, adds some masala to the whole gravy, and then leaves, and then makes an entry later somewhere.
And Vyas seems that he knows what will happen.
Oh, obviously he's the one writing the story. So
he's not writing the story. He's telling the story. Who's writing? It's Ganesh, right?
oh yeah, that we will get there. First, let's capture Vyasa. Yeah.
So, and you say that Vyasa is telling the story. He gets in and out of the story. He knows what will happen. Would be, and this is pure strapulation, okay? But is it possible that Vyasa is time itself?
No, yeah. Just to clarify, everyone, this is a beautiful hypothesis which Leo came up with, and I was very impressed when she thought it that way. That is Vyas time itself, and why I found this hypothesis to be so fascinating and so lucrative, because if you have watched the classic Mahabharat from B.R. Chopra, the OG one, not the new one. I am not a big fan. You can abuse me in the comment section if you want, but
no, they will abuse me because of my bad Hindi.
Yeah, you can abuse both of us. So in that classic Mahabharat, if you watch the episodes, the narrator is time, and time is the one who is narrating the whole story. And I just found it so fascinating when Leo came up with this idea and this hypothesis that what if Vyas is time itself, because time knows what will happen. Time knows the past, present, and the future. And Vyas, he keeps on coming in their lives, and he keeps on making some additions to the whole story. And to me, it felt like as if time itself is one character in this story.
And he comes to strategic points that are like the seeds of everything that will happen. Like if he haven't done this or said that, things would happen in a completely different way. So, and he makes comments that clearly he knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah, a lot of foreshadowing in his words. Yeah.
And, I don't think that even being an extraordinary Brahma, Ganesh would say yes to you, and I will write the text to you.
Yeah, so probably we can talk about this aspect now. So Vyas himself is narrating the story and hires a writer
Hires.
for the job, and none other than our both of us. We love Ganesh a lot.
Oh, I forgot to bring Ganesh here.
Yeah. So, like, he seeks the help from Lord Ganesh himself, because he says that this is a daunting task. This is a big task to accomplish on his own. He is narrating the story and writing it. Doing it all by himself is too much work to do. So he decides to offload it to Ganesha and asks for Ganesh services. And
Ganesh.
he obliges.
Yes, but with one condition. So Vyas must never keep him waiting. So Ganesha writes it down, and many times we go in and out of the main plot, but Vyas needs to keep narrating without stopping. And there's a nice addition. So in the book, it's written that Ganesh wrote it with his own tusk, which is poetic.
Yeah,
and beautiful.
that's poetic. Like, he used one of his tusks to write this poem. Having said that, there are many stories why Ganesh lost his tusk, so I just felt like this was probably just a touch from the author himself. But
And there's different versions of the Mahabharata, right?
yeah, there are many versions of Mahabharata.
And the ones that can be read by the Devas, the
Yeah.
one that can be read by humans. So Ganesh had to write a lot.
Yeah. So in the appendix, which is related with the foreword, it mentions that there were 6. So Vyas narrated the story twice. Originally, it has 24,000 shlokas. A shloka is a couplet of lines. So 24,000 shlokas, which is 48,000 lines. But then he decided to narrate more and do more work on this, and he narrates a Mahabharat which has 600,000 couplets, and out of these 600,000, 300,000 were known to Devas, 150,000 to Pitras, 140,000 to Yakshas, and 100,000 to humans. And I think this also takes us to
What's a Yaksha?
yeah, like
What's a Pitra?
some definitions, and you have worked on that aspect.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's a Pitra.
Pitras are ancestors. So there's every year in India we do some sort of rituals to offer our respect to Pitras, to the ancestors who have passed. So
Okay. And I had to do this homework because, this is his water and it's not my water. I wasn't born in the culture, so I need to understand. I need to take the time and understand what many words mean, like Yaksha. So accordingly to what I've researched, a Yaksha, it's a nature spirit, and it's usually benevolent, but sometimes mischievous or capricious. It's always connected with water or fertility, trees, the forest, and the wilderness. And they are like guardian deities.
I can give one example of a Yaksha. Kuber is one of the Yaksha. So Kuber was half brother to Ravan.
Oh,
And he ruled Lanka before Ravan took over him. So Kuber is a Yaksh. Kuber is also known as the one who gave Vishnu a loan for his marriage with Lakshmi.
Oh.
So Kuber is also known to be like a rich guy. So,
funny.
Yeah, he's a
wedding with
Yaksha.
Lakshmi.
So he's a Yaksha.
Okay. And we have other terms that we are introduced in the foreword of the book. And the other one is Apsaras, a celestial nymph. And a supernatural female being of great beauty, grace, and skill in dance, associated with Indra's heaven. And I had to think about Zeus,
Yeah, makes sense.
They provide sensual pleasures to gods and humans.
Mm-hmm.
Known for their ability to enchant and captivate gods and demons.
That makes sense. And there were many famous Apsaras as well. I think Menka was one who tried to get attention from Vishwamitra, and I can be very wrong in this. But there were many famous Apsaras as well. And yeah, in Mahabharata also we will have Apsaras.
That's why we have it in
Yeah.
Foreword. And the Gandharvas.
Mm-hmm.
The Gandharvas, the divine musicians and singers, they symbolize beauty, art, and music, messengers between the gods and humans, and part of the intermediate state between death and rebirth. I find it very interesting.
Yeah, and I had no clue about the concept of Gandharvas. I knew that there is something like Gandharvas, but I had no idea. So thanks for finding the definition.
And do you know about the Gandharva marriage?
What exactly it says?
It's something like a love marriage.
Oh, nice.
That you don't need the ceremony, but yeah, it has a specific name, but it's basically the Gandharva.
Go for Gandharva marriage.
He says.
Yeah.
And another term is the Nagas.
Mm-hmm.
I like these ones. They are semi-divine or divine serpent beings. They can transform from serpent to human bodies and vice versa. And they are guardians of rivers and rain.
Yeah, and there are famous Nagas as well in the story in Mahabharata, and they also played some role in the story of Ramayana as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And we have now we go to the other side, the Asuras.
Mm-hmm.
So they are a class of powerful beings, often described as demons or titans. And titans, it's
The Greek
a era,
reference?
yeah,
Okay.
it's the titans, who are often in opposition to the Devas.
Mm-hmm.
They are not inherently evil or purely malevolent. They are power seekers and they love to challenge the Devas. And
Okay, I will have to interject here. This is a very interesting point for me to keep just with myself. So, the fascinating thing about Hindu mythology and the Persian Zoroastrian mythology, which is now being followed by very small numbers in India, the fascinating thing is how our heroes are their villains and our villains are their heroes. So they can't call Asuras, they can't call S, so they call them Ahuras. And for them, Ahuras are the good guys and Devas are the bad guys.
it's all about point of view. It's
Yes.
all about perspective.
Yeah, so they have a main deity, I think his name is Ahura Mazda. But for them, Asuras are the good guys, Devas are the bad guys. For us, it's the opposite. And that's a beauty which I like about polytheistic traditions, even though many people would say that Zoroastrianism is no longer polytheistic or whatever. But like this is one aspect which I like about the mythologies from Persia and India.
It's always a point of view.
Yeah.
And we never have the full picture.
Yeah.
So, and to finish my small definition of each being, we have the Rakshasa,
Rakshasas.
that generally associated with chaos, wickedness, malevolent, monstrous creatures, shapeshifters, powerful beings that they normally are depicted as in opposition to Dharma.
Okay.
It's like an antagonist in the story. And I find it fascinating because in a way, they are the ones that are doing the bigger service. So we only know good if there's bad. Okay?
Okay.
And someone had to play the villain.
You need a Voldemort to establish Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we have very intelligent and very strong Rakshasa.
Okay. So one thing I would just add here is colloquially nowadays in common understanding of Hindus in India, there is hardly any distinction between Asuras and Rakshasas.
Oh.
Yeah. So we may use those words interchangeably. So like at least that's one thing which I would like to clarify, because if somewhere in the story we realize, the same person was called Asura earlier and now he's being called Rakshas, what is going on? So probably it's little bit a fluid term now, like both terms are quite fluid now. So yeah, I think that was a very good overview of all the beings which will be discussed in the story, and I think it's a good exercise to do it, because if you are watching Lord of the Rings, you should know what is an elf and what is a dwarf, so that you get some idea about what should you expect. So I think that was a good homework which you did, Leo. Thank you.
So in a nutshell, can you summarize this moment for our kind listeners?
One thing before that, before our summary, we are missing out on the soul of the foreword, because it talks about the Bhagwad Gita.
Oh, you're right.
It says that all this shenanigans is just to bring Bhagwad Gita into the picture. Bhagwad Gita is the pearl in this oyster of Mahabharata. Mahabharata itself is a very long text, as we have already established, and Bhagwad Gita happens when... So Bhagwad Gita literally translates to the song of the god. It happens in
the battlefield.
In the battlefield, just before the ultimate chaos, when the two armies are ready to attack each other. And that's the point. I don't know why Krishna decided to have that kind of setting. Many people say that it's like you are giving out the message of peace and prosperity and philosophy.
On the verge of chaos.
On the verge of chaos and war and battle. But whatever symbolism it has, you can think about it, you can comment it if you would like to explain that symbolism to us. But I think that's the essential part. That's a very important part which this foreword talks about, when the third Pandava, whose name is Arjun, he's the greatest archer in the world, and he loses his nerves when he's confronted by his cousins, teachers, nephews, elders in the family, and he takes refuge in Krishna and asks him to guide him in this...
because he didn't want to fight.
Yeah, because he lost the courage of... So that's also a thing. I feel it's so easy to talk about being a rebel or a revolutionary, and it's so easy to lose your nerves when you have to prove yourself in the moment of need. And I think that's what happened with Arjuna. And then Krishna probably pauses the time and gives this eternal message, which is still living on for 5,000 years. Probably it is quite important to modern day Hindus as well. And hopefully it may survive more if people will keep their interest in the story. And I think the essential learning from this story was Bhagwad Gita. I would like to ask you one question on that. The author mentions Bhagwad Gita as the New Testament of Hindus. What was your impression reading that line? And then probably I can share my views.
So when I read that comparison, my first reaction was physiological, in the sense of there was a knot in my stomach and the feeling of, no, they are different, very different, especially because one tells the life of Jesus and establishes salvation, and the other one, it's completely different and open, and it's not establishing any rules, at least from my point of view. And they are very different cultures. So it was initially, I had resistance to it. I do understand that, especially for Western people, we need to have some comparison and to show this is as important as the New Testament is for you. So, and in that, from that point of view, I understand it. but in a philosophical, spiritual point of view, it's tricky, and I can't simplify it in that way.
Yeah, I think you used the right words, that you felt a knot in your stomach. I also felt something similar. I'm not an expert neither in New Testament nor in Bhagwad Gita. I've hardly read any of it, but I still feel that the comparison made by the author in the foreword was more or less to establish the importance of the text, as you said, instead of saying that these are comparable texts or something. And I would say that
both are canons. Both are canons, regardless.
Yeah,
but they are canons, both of them.
Yeah, that I think I agree to. And again, on the Bhagavad Gita side, I also feel that everyone can interpret it in their own ways. There are many famous interpretations around the world, and I still think it's an individual journey. No one else can dictate and define the meaning of the text for you. It should be the case that you read it and whatever you interpret it out of it. But that's the rationalist me speaking.
And it's a fact.
Yeah, like I'm not a fan of having a society or a hierarchy deciding what this particular line means to me. At least that's my viewpoint when it comes to Bhagavad Gita or any kinds of epics or stories, or especially literature which talks about morals or ethics. So
yeah, from a seed to a tree, there's many different stages. Nobody can offer you to transform automatically into a tree. You need to go through the process. So you need to read the text. You need to dig in. It's your transformation. The master cannot do it for you.
I think enough wisdom has been shared. But yeah, like if we want to summarize it quickly,
please.
We have a big calculation of years for humans, Devas, Pitras.
We'll share it.
We will share it, and you can check it out, and you will see that the math is not mathing
at all.
So they are approximations, but it's not the exact calculation. And then how this war of Mahabharata is a bridge between the previous Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug. The foreword talks about the Kshatriyas who can be traced to gods but have become arrogant, and therefore they need to be destroyed. And eventually 10 million Kshatriyas, a big claim, they died in this war. And roughly around 5,000 years back, this story happened. And then the author shares a highlight of the story where he talks about a kingdom called Hastinapur, ruled by House of Kurus, and how in their descendants there is a lineage called Kauravas and a lineage called Pandavas, who eventually fight this battle. And all this happens under the supervision of our incarnation of Vishnu called Krishna. And then we also talk a little bit about Vyasa, who is, as you said, time in the story.
Big claim.
Yeah, big claim. And then the discussion is on Bhagwad Gita, the song of the god, and its influence on modern India and Hindus. And in the end, the epicness, how big this epic is. It's 7 times longer than Iliad and Odyssey combined. And to complete this daunting task, Vyasa asks for help from none other than Ganesha.
Before we go there, and I'm sorry, just adding something, is there any favorite sentence or any favorite image that you, from the foreword, that you would like to share with our kind listeners?
Yeah, I have one. And the thing which I made note of was when Krishna is in the middle of the two armies with Arjun. So the author writes, on the brink of the savage war, the avatar sings his wisdom. and that for me was very poetic, and I really liked it, and that's why I was thinking about the symbolism, and I am asking our kind listeners to share their feedback. What do you think? Why Krishna chose that setting to share his wisdom? And what were the things which made you feel touched or...
It was not touched. I kept thinking about it, and it's just at the beginning where the author writes, from the Treta Yuga, a Dharma, evil, comes to the world, and the very fabric of time begins to decay. And I find it beautiful. But this concept of the very fabric of time begins to decay, it's very heavy, and it's almost in my mind like a cancer, like the life itself becomes twisted. And I want to ask our kind listeners their opinion and how they read this sentence.
To me, I would just say that to me it felt like as if we are talking about the space fabric when we talk about how the universe is expanding all over the place, because the space is expanding. And the way the author has talked about time, the fabric
Matrix is...
Yeah, the fabric of time. So I somehow got that image in my head. But yes, please, kind listeners, help us explain this line.
Thank you. Okay, so next.
Yeah, we would just like to give a glimpse to our kind listeners about the birth of a poet, Vyasa.
Yes.
So that's our next chapter. And I will have to give some credit to Vyasa. He is a total show-off. Like in his story, he is telling us how he was born. So
It's important.
Yeah,
it's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's important, it's extraordinary, and I will have to give it to Vyasa for his confidence.
And maybe that's why our channel is under the Banyan Tree.
Why? Like,
you will have a banyan leaf.
Okay, that's too much detail which he remembers. But yeah, stay tuned if you would like to know the magical birth of Vyasa.
Yes.
Stay tuned if you want to know why Vyasa described his own story in the Mahabharata, and it's a fascinating story. And please let us know in the comment section what are the things you liked, what are the things you agree or disagree with, and we hope to meet you soon. Any last parting words?
Just thank you for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed, and namaste.
Namaste.